Thank you. All right. Before I start my sermon, I just want to say, nice save, Samo. Nice save. I don't know what happened with the keyboard, but that's very interesting. We'll figure it out after this. All right. Anyway, good afternoon, everyone. So glad to be here. Um, as I mentioned earlier, Pak Susugi decided to go to Pakistan. I believe this coming Saturday, though. So please do keep him in prayer all the time, all right? Please do keep him in prayer. We are in the book of 1 Samuel. If you've been listening to our sermon this year, we've been focusing on 1 Samuel. My sermon today will be based on 1 Samuel chapter 21. But before we get to 1 Samuel chapter 21, I'm just going to give you a quick summary, just a brief overview, the chapters prior to that. So timeline-wise, if you're talking about timeline, we are entering a phase of transition in David's life. We are entering a transition in David's life. David rose to fame. He defeated Goliath. That's a couple of weeks ago. We learned about David defeated Goliath. And he was transformed from what the Bible calls this is the descriptions of David according to the Bible. 1 Samuel chapter 16. He was glowing with health, had a fine appearance, and handsome features. This is another translation. His youngest son had a good color in his skin, beautiful eyes, and was good looking. Another translation says that he was dark and handsome with beautiful eyes. When I try to picture that in my head, Kristo lah, mirip-mirip. But he was transformed from that description into a man of war. The Bible also described him, 1 Samuel chapter 18. The Philistine commanders continued to go out to battle. And as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. 1 Samuel chapter 19:18, war broke out, and David went out and fought the Philistines. He struck them with such force that they fled before him. He was transformed from a beautiful eyes, handsome boy, if I can say, into a man of war. David was anointed as a king in a private ceremony between Samuel and himself, but he's not appointed as a king yet. God, through his sovereign grace, through his sovereignty, decided not to appoint David to be king just yet. And a couple of weeks ago, we talked how Saul was so consumed by his jealousy. He was so consumed by his insecurity, he kept pursuing David and tried to kill David. And that's chapter 18 and 19. In chapter 20, David was so confused. What did I do? What was I doing wrong? I thought I helped the cause. I defeat the enemies. Why I become the enemy now? Yeah, the Bible wrote in 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1, then David fled from Naioth at Ramah and went to Jonathan and asked, what have I done? What is my crime? How have I wronged your father that he's trying to kill me? Jonathan was also confused and probably still a bit in a denial stage. He cannot believe what David is saying, that his dad is trying to kill him. So Jonathan replied, verse 4, never, Jonathan replied, you're not going to die. Look, my father doesn't do anything great or small without letting me know. Why would he hide this from me? It isn't so. So 1 Samuel chapter 20 talks about a story how David asked Jonathan to confirm once again, is Saul really wants him dead? Is Saul really intended to kill him or not? So in chapter 20, you can read it yourself. You learn that they plan how Jonathan going to ask the questions and how Jonathan going to convey the message and the answers back to David. Long story short, according to the plan, Jonathan going to ask the dad and so on and so forth. Long story short, yes, it's confirmed. Saul really wanted David to die. And Jonathan conveyed that message to David. The beauty in this story is, yes, Saul's is Jonathan's father, but Jonathan knew what is the right and what is the wrong thing. Despite Saul is Jonathan's father, Jonathan chose to side with David. Not because David is his close friend, but because Jonathan know what is right and what is wrong. Because he know David did not do anything wrong and God is on his side. The beauty in this story is, yes, if Saul remain as king, then Jonathan will be the next in line to be king. But despite that potential position, despite that potential richness, despite that potential honor, Jonathan chose his friendship with David. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 24, one who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin. But there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. That's how the Bible describes the friendship between David and Jonathan. I'm sure there's a lot more that we can learn from this chapter, but I'm going to invite you to learn it yourself. There's definitely a lot of things that we can learn about friendship between David and Jonathan. Especially these days, nowadays, according to statistics, especially for men, we become more and more isolated. The older we are, the less close friends that we have. But I pray, hopefully, we can find and establish friendship like David and Jonathan. But anyhow, with that, let's move on from now. And I'm really going to go to the 1 Samuel chapter 21. This is the title of my sermon, God's Mercy Under Pressure. God's Mercy Under Pressure. Just a heads up, as we go through the sermon, you will notice that this title will kind of disappear in the background. You might even question what is the connections between my sharing, my points, what I say, with God's mercy. But that's okay. I actually want to ask you to keep God's mercy in mind. As you listen to the sermon in your head, I want to ask you to evaluate in your head and ask yourself, try to find the connection. Where does God's mercy fit in all this? Okay? God's mercy under pressure. David continued to run away from Saul, and we arrive in 1 Samuel chapter 21. David went to a city called Nob, and he met a priest called Ahimelech. He was hungry and asked for a bread. And Ahimelech gave David the bread that was special, designated, separated for a priest, because there were none others. David's life really turns upside down. He used to be a hero. I'm sure he did not lack anything, but as he was running away, he had to ask a priest for a piece of bread. And sorry to say this, he even lied to fool the priest that he was on a mission sent by the king. His life turned upside down. He cannot eat. He even have to lie. There's definitely a lot we can learn from this incident, especially Jesus himself specifically mentions about this. But today I want to discuss with you what happened next. So we're going to read from 1 Samuel chapter 21. I'm going to read from verse 8. If you have your Bible with you, if you have your phone, I'm going to ask you to open it up yourself. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 8. 1 Samuel chapter 21, verse 8. I'm going to read it for you, but I'm going to ask you to kind of follow along. All right? So this is the word of God according to 1 Samuel chapter 8. David asked Ahimelech, "Don't you have a spear or a sword here? I haven't brought my sword or any other weapon because the king's mission was urgent." That was a lie. The priest replied, "The sword of Goliath, the Philistines, whom you killed the valley of Elah, is here. It is wrapped in a cloth behind the ephod. If you want it, take it. There is no sword here but that one." David said, "There is none like it. Give it to me." Verse 10, that day David fled from Saul and went to Achish, king of Gath. But the servant of Achish said to him, "Isn't this David, the king of the land? Isn't he the one they sing about and in their dances? Saul has slain thousands, and David his tens of thousands." David took this word to heart and was very much afraid of Achish, the king of Gath. So he pretended to be insane in their presence. And while he was in their hands, he acted like a madman, making marks on the door of the gate and letting saliva run down his beard. Aki said to his servant, "Look at the man, he is insane. Why bring him to me? Am I so short of madmen that you have to bring this fellow here to carry on like this in front of me? Must this man come into my house?" David pretending to be a madman. Again, David's life is such a roller coaster. He started as a shepherd boy, turned into a warrior. He was unknown, then turned into a well-known. He was a shepherd and then turned into a hero, but then things turned upside down. He was a hero, then turned into a fugitive. He was the person that Saul called upon when he needed help, then turned into the person that Saul tried to kill the most. He was a well-liked person, but then he became the most hated person. In this story, he turned into a madman just in order to survive. Such a story with so many twists and turns and plot line. And we as a reader, I hope you agree with me, what we read, David pretending to be a mad is definitely not a pleasant thing. I hope you agree it's not a nice thing to read. It's not a pleasant thing to read that David, a man after God's own heart, a man that is anointed to be the next king, has to pretend to be mad. David faked his sanity for him to escape from Gath. He thought that running to Gath to escape from Saul will give him the relief that he was looking for. But as we can see from the story, instead of a relief, he was under more pressure than before. David's decisions to run away to Gath was very interesting. It's very questionable at the same time. Especially for us, the reader, we know what happened in the aftermath of that decision. Because of his decisions to travel to Gath, we learn that in Psalms 56, it seems like he was captured and he was put in house arrest. Gath is a Philistine territory, and David was one of the enemy that kept destroying them. I read this verse before in 1 Samuel chapter 19, verse 8. War broke out. David went out and fought the Philistine, and he struck them with such force that they fled before him. Why David went to the enemy's territory? Why David decided to went to the enemy's territory? There was a saying, enemy of my enemy is my friend. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. Is this move simply a war tactic for survival? Is David trying to join forces with the Philistine and defeat Saul? To be honest with you, as I think about it, I don't think that's what David has in mind. Knowing what happened down the road, I don't think he had betraying his home country. I don't think he had betraying his own people. I don't think, betraying his hometown. I don't think he has that in mind. Was he really just trying to hide out from Saul? If that's the case, why did he pick Gath on the first place? You see a map over there, the one that's kind of greenish. It's indicating Israelites territory, the Saul's territory, right? The yellowish is not Saul's territory. So if you can see, there's a small square in the center, and there's on the north of it, there's a called Apek. Why not go to Apek? Why does he decided to go to Gath? Why not go to Apek? Why he didn't go to Amalek territory? Amalek territory is down south right there. Why he didn't go to the Amnon territory? It's on the east. Why Gath on the first place? What's so special about Gath? It is not clearly written in the Bible why David chose Gath, but I feel like God, through the Holy Spirit and through the author, give us a clear clue in the previous verse. The priest replied, "The sword of Goliath the Philistine." In 1 Samuel chapter 17, we learn that a champion named Goliath who was from Gath. So in other words, Gath was special because Goliath was from there. So This is what I mean. I personally think that during that moment when the priest replied David, the sword of the Goliath, the Philistine, I think in that moment there was a moment of flashback in David's mind. He remembered back then he was younger. He was not yet a well-known warrior. He remembered back then he was young, and because of the Spirit of God was upon him, he can defeat the giant. Looking at the sword, he remembered God gave him victory over the giant of Philistine back then. The sword is a powerful symbol. The sword is a powerful reminder God's prior deliverance and gave David hope. God delivered him back then, and indeed he will deliver him again today. It is a faithful reminder that indeed God is with him. He is faithful, that David should not lose hope. That sword is a faithful, strong reminder. But I think David took a step further than that. He used the reminder that God provided of the past victory and used it as a solution to relieve his current pressure. Let me repeat that again. He used the reminder that God provided of past victory and used it as a solution to relieve his current pressure. What I'm trying to say is this: past victories, past method, past formula does not always mean the path to the new deliverance. Past victory, past method, past ways, past formula does not always mean the path to the new deliverance. If I put myself in David's shoes and I try to imagine that moment. In the past, God gave me victory over Philistines, so if I go there now, I will defeat them again. I don't have to run away anymore. In the past, God gave me victory over the giants. So if I go there now, I will defeat the other giants in God, conquer the land, and I will not be under pressure anymore. I view myself as a practical person. I like efficiency. I like shortcuts. Alright? Kalau nggak usah repot, ngapain repot-repot? But I think we in general as a person, as individual, we like shortcuts and we like formulas. Because shortcuts and formula give you a sure result and predictable result. Shortcut and formula give you some kind of assurance and predictable results. If you hit Control C, it will copy. If you hit Control V, it will appear. It is predictable, it is sure, and it gives you a sense of control. But can I say that a lot of times we treat our relationship with God that way? Sometimes we treat our experience with God that way. If I do A squared plus B squared, then you're going to get? Good job. You passed calculus 1, I think. In David's case, God gave victory over Philistine before, so he thinks, I can win it again. God gave me victory over Philistine before, then I defeated the giant before, then for sure I could defeat the Philistine now, I could defeat the giants now, then I can escape from Saul. Unfortunately, that's not what God has in mind. Unfortunately, that's not what God's plan is. He thought that running to God to escape from Saul will give him a relief. But instead of a relief, he was under more pressure than before. That's why I think when we make decision, it should not depend on our personal experience alone. When we make decision, it should not depend on our past victories alone. When we make decision, it should not depend on what God do through us before. We need more than that. But having said that, I want to go back and say, the sword is a powerful reminder, is a powerful symbol of God's prior deliverance and should give David hope. God delivered him back then, and indeed he will deliver him again today. It is a faithful reminder that indeed God is with him and he is faithful, and David should not lose hope. So when you are under pressure, never lose hope. When you are under pressure, always remember God is faithful. When you are under pressure, remember God walks beside you. When you are under pressure, remember He is inside the pressure cooker together with you. When you are under pressure, it helps to remember your past victory, your past deliverance, but don't shortcut it by implementing your past solution to your current situation. When you are under pressure, it gives you a sense of relief to remember your past deliverance or what God did in your life before, but spend the time to seek God and ask Him for the new solution for your current pressure. Your past solution does not always mean the path to the new deliverance. And another point that I want to point out, I think one of another simple thing that we can learn from this passage, from this story, and kind of tying back with Pastor Sugi's sermon a couple of weeks ago, when under pressure, don't go too far. Last time, Pastor Sugi mentioned you need to be anchored in the local church. In this story, we learn David ran away from his people. He ran away from his family. He ran away from his hometown. He ran away from his own country. He traveled far and decided to go to the enemy's territory. One of my favorite chapter in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 12. Just as body, though one has many parts, but all its many parts form one body. So it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit so as to form one body. Whether Jews or Gentiles, slave or free, we were all given of the one Spirit to drink. Even so, the body is not made up one part, but of many. Verse 18, one of my favorite verse. But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. That's my favorite verse. I want to read that again. And I want to read it slowly and let it sing to us. But in fact, God has placed the parts in the body, every one of them, just as He wanted them to be. What should make us planted to a certain church? Not because the church provides the best teaching, the best sermon, we tried our best. It's not because it provides the best music, we also try our best. It's not because it provides the best atmosphere, the best environment, whatever best you can think of. But it's really because God placed you in the church. There are a lot of churches with different calling and different functions. And God, through His sovereign grace, placed each person in a certain body, in a certain church, according to His will, according to what He wants that particular church to accomplish. The sense of community and understanding of local church has been going downhill. A lot of people view church not so much different with a place that you go once a week for several hours to get something. Some view church not so much different than a theater. You spend a few hours a week, you get entertained while you are there. Some view church not so much different than a social club. You spend a few hours a week, you get connected, you hang out, you make jokes, and then that's it. Some view church not so much different than extra math lesson. You spend a few hours a week, you learn something, and that's it. But local church is so much more than that. And I love how God used a body as an analogy of a church. Each person as a member or parts of a body. I mean, think about it. Can parts of a body live outside the body? Can parts of a body live outside of the body? If I am a pinky, can a pinky detach from my hand, stay alive and flourishing if it's separated from the body? Some people say, I love Jesus, I love God, but I cannot stand the church. Now think about it. If I am a pinky, can a pinky detach from the hand, attach to the head, and stay alive and flourishing? I hope you agree with me. No, it cannot. On the same token, since we are all parts of a body, each part No matter how small, no matter how big, no matter how young, no matter how old, no matter how weird it is, each part has its own function. Nothing in the body is designed and intended to sit still, look pretty, do nothing, and simply receive. Each part of the body has its own role to play. Does not matter how big, how small, how young, how old, how strange, there's a role for each one and every part of the body. Can you eat with your feet? You can. You won't be able to eat well, but I think you can. Can you walk with your arms and hand? You can. You won't be able to walk well, but I think still can. You can. So if we go back to the church, think about it. A church may not be walking well because it's using its feet to walk. It's not using its feet to walk. It can survive by walking, by using its hand, but it's not going to walk very well. A church may not be healthy because it's been using its feet to eat. It can survive, but it's not going to do well. So with that, for a body to be healthy, for a body to function well, all its parts must function according to its purpose. Okay, but that's not my topic for today, right? My topic for today is about pressure. Under pressure. When under pressure, don't go too far. Going back to the concept that you are part of the body. If your right, okay, this is my left hand. If your left hand is under pressure, there is a big weight on top of it. The solution to relieve the pressure is not to cut off itself from the rest of the body. Do you agree with me? Or do you think I'm crazy? If there is a big pressure on the top of my left hand, the solution to relieve the pressure is not by detaching itself from my arm, try to wiggle itself and escape from the pressure. Do you agree? Same thing with you. When you are under pressure, to a certain extent, God designed it, God intended it such that you are not supposed to deal with it on your own. God designed it, God intended it such that you are not supposed to deal with it in isolation. God designed it, God intended it such that the other parts of the body help you to relieve that pressure. I hope that makes sense. When your left hand is under pressure, if you are that left hand, instead of thinking, oh man, because I attached to this arm, I cannot wiggle myself and relieve myself from this pressure. I wish I can detach myself from this arm. That's not the correct way. The correct way is you should tell the arm, hey arm, I am under a lot of pressure. Can you wiggle yourself? Then maybe that pressure will be thrown off. Or you maybe can tell the right hand, hey right hand, I am under a lot of pressure. Can you help me out? If still that doesn't work, then you tell your feet, hey feet, help me to relieve my pressure. You are part of a local church. You are not designed. God doesn't design it. God doesn't intend it for you to deal with pressure on your own. Involve your other hands. Involve your feet. Involve the other parts of your body. Is that okay? If one part suffers, every part suffers. If one part is honored, if one part is rejoicing, every part rejoice with it. When I am under pressure, you should be under pressure too. When the hand is under pressure, the foot needs to help to relieve that pressure. When one part suffers, every part suffers. When one part is rejoicing, every part is rejoicing. If there's one part of the body rejoicing because Man United just win against Liverpool, even though you are a Liverpool fan, you still need to rejoice. Agree, Crystal? Carry each other burden, and in this way you should fulfill the law of Christ. When I am under pressure, you should help me carry that burden. Therefore, confess your sin to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. When I am under pressure, pray for me so that I might be healed and relieved. When under pressure, don't go too far. So with that, when you are under pressure, when I am under pressure, when anyone is under pressure, let's not try to isolate ourselves. Let's not try to cut ourselves from the body. Let's not try to hide. God put you in a local church for a reason. Be open, be vulnerable, speak out, reach out. God designed the local church for that purpose. When under pressure, don't chop yourself off from the body. Stay in the body. When under pressure, don't go too far. So I ask you, after the end of the service, as we talk, as we chit-chat, ask, how are you doing? And if someone asks you, how are you doing? Answer honestly. If you are under pressure, if you need help, tell that person. And that person will be there to support you. God's mercy under pressure. That is the title of my sermon today. I picked that title because that is the one thing, that is the main thing that I want you to take away from home today. The point of my sermon today is not to give you nuggets to avoid pressure. It's not to give you nuggets to avoid pressure. It's not to give you shortcut to relieve you from pressure. But I really want to highlight and point out that God's mercy is still there even you are under pressure. If grace is unmerited and undeserved favor, mercy is being spared from what you deserve. From David's story, we read he made a lot of mistakes. He lied to the priest. He ate the holy bread that was designed for the priest. But despite his error, despite his mistake, God did not smite him and let Saul kill him. God's mercy still protect him and cover him. He went to Gath, a city of Philistine, the city of the enemy. And I hope you still agree with me, that was not a smart move. That was not a smart decision. It was a mad decision. But despite his error, God did not kill him. God did not smite him and let him die in the hands of Achish, the king of Philistine. He had to lie to escape. Yes, I agree with you. It's not the best, kosher, holy way to escape. But God did not smite him and let him die in the hands of the enemy. But God's mercy protect him and cover him. Isaiah 42 verse 3, a bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. I want to say God's mercy, His mercy is there. His mercy will cover you and protect you. And when you are under intense pressure, when you made mistake and error, I want you to remember that God's mercy is there to cover you. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. In all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. When He allows you to be under pressure, it's not to break you, but it's for your good. When He allows you to be under pressure, it's not to shake you, but it's to sharpen you. When you feel like you are inside a pressure cooker, remember, He is inside the pressure cooker together with you. The extent of my cooking is just cooking rice, so I apologize if this is wrong, but according to Google, when you put two different ingredients inside a pressure cooker, their flavors will be infused together better than in a normal cooking. Think about it. When you feel like you are in a pressure cooker, you are in there together with Jesus. As you are in that pressure cooker together, you'll be infused together more with Him. As you inside the pressure cooker together with Jesus, you'll become more and more like Him. And remember, His mercy is plenty, even when you are under pressure. I invite everybody to stand up. Let's sing one more song before we close our service today.